We're delighted today to have Judge Theo Nixon. He was appointed as District Court Judge for Mecklenburg County by Governor Perdue in April of '09. Prior to serving as a District Court Judge, he was a partner at a law firm practicing criminal defense work. He began his legal career as an attorney in the Mecklenburg Criminal Defender's Office. Judge Nixon received his bachelor's degree from North Carolina State University, hope I got that right this time, and his law degree from the University of South Carolina. He was born and raised in North Carolina and has been a lifelong member of the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church. Judge Nixon, we're delighted to have you and have you come to the podium.
Well, I'm deeply humbled by the invitation to come and speak with y'all, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to do it. I see some faces in the crowd that have much more experience than I do. And I thank the Attorney General and the Governor's Office for allowing me to come in and address this group. Just as by means of a little bit of background, I had, there's Sheriff Cloninger over there who has kept me out of trouble a couple of times myself. But in any event, I have practiced law in Mecklenburg County for over 30 years as a criminal defense attorney. So I get that particular perspective about the criminal justice system. And I started in the public defender's office when we had just very few people, probably about 5 attorneys in the public defender's office. Now that they've got a huge volume of assistant district attorneys here in Charlotte. But beyond that, at the end of my career, I decided it was time for me to do a little bit of giving back, and I had knowledge of the criminal justice system, and I asked to be allowed to serve as judge, and actually served as a judge in 2008. Didn't make it through the election, so I'm back again by the grace of Governor Perdue to work in a capacity as a district court judge in Mecklenburg County. When I started in 2008, I realized we had a number of probation officers that would come into our courtrooms with probation violation reports and probation offenders, and would sit there through the entire session as other cases were handled. And I'm a misdemeanor judge with the District Court Judge's Office, although we do handle some Class H and Class I felonies from other counties where people are placed on probation, and then I have to determine whether or not they're in violation of their probations. But getting back to my point, I noticed that we had a lot of probation officers sitting in courtrooms, and they would generally get heard at the end of sessions. I recognized that it tied up a lot of time for these probation officers who had much more important things to be doing, like supervising probationers out in the system instead of sitting in a courtroom waiting for 2.5 hours to have their cases heard. So I instituted a program whereby all probation cases came before me, all misdemeanor probation cases, Class I and Class H felonies, and I would hear them. That began to interfere with our general courtroom and other trials and matters that needed to be heard. So I went to my Chief District Court Judge, Lisa Bell, and asked her permission to create a court, a probation violation court. We have instituted that here in Mecklenburg County. Every Friday morning, starting at 9:00 a.m., I hear probation violations, supervised probation violations. So I did that because Superior Court, of course, has their felony probation violations, and they run, generally speaking, mostly Mondays and Tuesdays for probation violations, but require that probation officers be available Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I took that one slot, which was Friday, and I said, okay, we're going to hear probation violations in district court every Friday morning starting at 9:00. That's what we've started effective January 1st of this year. So every Friday we get together and have probation violations. We have supervised probation violations in the morning. We have unsupervised probation violations and deferred prosecution violations in the afternoons on Fridays. We are there all day long. Last Friday I had 57 probation violations heard in the morning session when I started into the unsupervised probation violations. Those, of course, are matters like when they come before the court, I place someone on unsupervised probation, I sentence them, give them a 30-day, 45-day, 120-day sentence, whatever it may be, suspended on certain conditions that they pay a fine, the cost of court, complete a certain number of community service hours. I may require them to obtain a substance abuse assessment, generally through task, complete all necessary treatment required, Those types of things. If they're in violation of that, they get reported back to me. I hear those cases. My whole point with doing that, after being in private practice, leaving the public defender's office, being in private practice for 28 years is, why can't we function as a government system? Why can't we function like the private sector does in certain respects? That is, let's get efficient about our time. Let's utilize what resources that we have in order to accomplish what we need to do. Let's stop wasting time with probation officers being in courtrooms waiting for their cases to be heard. Let's hear them all at one time. Let's get them done. Let's be efficient about what we do. It also offers consistency. If you have the same judge sitting there listening to probation violation cases, there is a certain expectation that is brought into a courtroom. This is what this judge requires. This is what he's tough on. This is what he's going to give you some breathing room on. Those types of things. But changing judges every week in a particular probation violation court is terribly inconsistent because judges vary on their approaches and their philosophies. Mine may not be, because of criminal defense background, one of the most prosecutorially oriented probation violation judges. However, I try to use what I learned in my experience, and that is primarily try to use my common sense and know that in this day and age, we have great limitations budget-wise. We have great limitations with resources. We have to take advantage of the fact that we have less, and we have to do more. We absolutely have to. We have 15 slots available for probation officers in Mecklenburg County that we cannot fill, which means that if you carry an average caseload of 80 to 100 cases, you've got 1,500 cases out there that are not being supervised appropriately because we pile them on the existing probation officers, which is overwhelming to them. I have also the advantage of being the judge that handles adult drug treatment court in Mecklenburg County. I have 2 separate courts there, and adult mental health court in Mecklenburg County, which utilize probation officers. Probably one of the most important aspects of our treatment courts is having a probation officer dedicated to working the group and staying on top of them. It's very intensive. We have treatment sessions every week. We have court sessions every 2 weeks. We have mandatory drug screening tests. We have drug screenings done by treatment counselors, treatment providers, our adult drug treatment courts. In addition, we require the probation officers, by means of a previous agreement with the state of North Carolina, a memorandum of understanding, that they are required to test the people through our drug treatment courts and our mental health treatment courts for the use of substances. So we put a great deal of burden on probation, and we have to take advantage of the fact to try to utilize their time to the best of our abilities. What I have found is that creating this probation violation court has been very successful in different aspects, one of which, and my big concern, is efficiency. We've got to be efficient. It allows the maximum use of time of probation officers and court personnel. We had to do some shifting to do it. We had to allocate a particular courtroom. We had to allocate clerks of court to come in to be able to process the paperwork we generate out of the probation violation courts. This day and age, because of the economy and the way it is and how difficult it is for ex-offenders to seek and gain employment, what's ended up happening is I get a vast number of probation violations before me that are monetary in nature, failed to pay court costs, fines, supervision fees, and the like. Then I have a second group, a large group of individuals coming in that have been ordered to complete substance abuse assessments and follow through with all recommended treatment. Well, you can go get an assessment with TASC, and it's free. They assess you and they say, okay, you have to do 20 hours worth of classes, 40 hours, intensive outpatient, 90 hours worth of classes, or you need inpatient treatment. Well, that's fine, but then we get the assessments completed and a probationer appears before me. He's being violated because he hasn't completed his classes. These classes cost money. It's $250 a pop for 20-hour classes, $450 a pop for 40-hour classes, $650 a pop for intensive outpatient. Fortunately, here in Mecklenburg County, and I don't know how the other counties in North Carolina do this, we have some subsidy funding for people going in an intensive outpatient program where the county actually subsidizes individuals, pays for their fees to go through this drug treatment process. That's helped us, but it doesn't help us with the 20 and 40-hour folks that have to go through treatment. What do? I strike the requirement for them to complete those treatments, not because I don't think they need it, but what I then do is turn around and require them to do 40 AA-NA meetings within 60 days, 90 AA meetings within a period of time. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying AA-NA because now in the law, we can't force people to go into Christian-based type programs, so we call them now community support agencies and groups. That being said, without voicing my own independent opinion about that and violating the law any further, I make them go do these treatments, and I make them bring me sign-up sheets with verification numbers, the groups they attended and the like. So what that does now, it is avoids me revoking somebody's probation and sending them to prison or the local facilities for 120 days or 60 days or 90 days or the like. $109 a day it costs us here in Mecklenburg County to house somebody in jail. That doesn't do us any good. My approach on that is it costs the taxpayers of the state of North Carolina money to incarcerate individuals. You know the cost, $30,000, $33,000, $35,000, whatever it costs to put them in DOC. And what do we accomplish by that? The punitive portion of that, nothing more. We don't rehabilitate people. We don't keep them from being recidivist. We don't keep them out of the process of the criminal justice system. If we can direct our focuses towards at least treatment, some significant treatment to get them turned around, and this is my plug for adult drug treatment courts, there's nothing like seeing someone graduate after a year to 14 months to 18 months out of our programs in the adult drug treatment courts, and to see them totally rehabilitated, substance-free, putting families back together, getting people back into the workforce, avoiding having to deal with them. Every time somebody gets into trouble and comes into the system, whether it's probation violations or criminal offenses, you appoint a public defender to represent them. If the public defender's office can't handle it, it's farmed out, as we call it, to the local bar. $75 an hour we're paying these attorneys to handle these cases. So in order for me to accomplish what I need to do, I have to sometimes create certain types of things to enforce the law, make sure that we're maintaining proper supervision over our probationers, and at the same time to affect the purpose of the law, which is hopefully rehabilitation, to keep these people out of the criminal justice system, to keep them out of prisons, to keep them out of jails. Let's do something proactive in order to try to get this going appropriately. I understand I was to speak to you all today about probation violations in our probation violation court. I further understand that this particular system that we have implemented here in Mecklenburg County won't work in small rural jurisdictions where you can't dedicate an entire court for probation violations. I would hope that somehow we can maybe utilize this system in some of the larger jurisdictions, some of the bigger towns, Greensboro, Raleigh, Wilmington, Fayetteville, Asheville, Durham, wherever we need to, in order to make the process more efficient, to reach that particular goal of trying to rehabilitate the group, to try to be efficient in the spending of monies towards probation, the cost of probation, take some of the probation off some of the pressure off of probation and the system itself in order to try to accomplish this goal. That is what we've implemented here. It's been very successful in Mecklenburg County. I see Judge Yvonne Mims walked in here during this process. Judge Yvonne Mims also works the adult drug treatment courts here in Mecklenburg County. Those are post-judgment cases. Down in district court, when we do adult drug treatment, it's pre-judgment. So we intercept individuals charged with drug offenses, drug-related offenses, and give them an opportunity to be placed on what we call our own probation for a period of time to try to keep them from ultimately reaching the point where they're convicted of these offenses, go to prison and the like, and we wasted our time. As soon as they're right back out, the same thing is going to happen with them. We have to use whatever resources, limited as they may be, to affect what we need to do. And so that is what has happened here in Mecklenburg County. I invite the other jurisdictions to at least consider this option when they start doing their probation violations in these various courts and various jurisdictions. I would be glad to answer any questions about the system we've set up in Charlotte. I hope I haven't gotten too far off task on this matter, and we'll be glad to respond to any questions anyone has.
Questions and comments that people might have.
Yes, sir. To the High Sheriff from Gaston County. We have a post-judgment services office here in Charlotte. Once a judge enters a judgment, they're sent to a particular room on the 4th floor where our district court level trial courts are found. Then when they go to that particular room, they are required to sign up for community service as the judge has imposed. Fine collection, which is something we have here in Mecklenburg County. If you don't have the money to pay this right now, we send you down to fine collection. They set up a payment plan for you to complete what you need to do. If I've ordered a substance abuse assessment and follow through treatment, you have to go down and sign up with them. So that's how we keep track of it. They're allowed a certain amount of time to comply with that. If they don't comply, the post-judgment services individuals bring the matters to me. I issue either summonses or orders for arrest for failure to comply with the unsupervised probation requirements. Those are the cases that are heard in the afternoon session on Fridays before me. So that's the way we have of tracking it. We're having a little bit of difficulty because of manpower, making sure that these individuals go down the hall to this room where they're supposed to sign in after they've been sentenced. I direct defense attorneys to take it down there. They don't like it, but I did it in private practice to make sure that my client did what he was supposed to do. We've actually had allotted funds in Mecklenburg County and created some positions for bailiffs and deputy sheriffs to escort individuals down to this room to make sure they signed up. That's gone by the wayside because of the lack of resources to get a sheriff's deputy, to commit a sheriff's deputy to do exactly that, march these folks down to sign them up. We're trying to figure out another process now by which we can accomplish that, because there are people that will say, I'm not doing that, and just walk out the courtroom door at that point. That's been a little bit of an issue, and you must bring the violation back during the period of the suspended sentence, or you just lose the ability to collect those funds, because once the suspended sentence period has expired, 12 months, 24 months, whatever it is, you effectively and legally can't bring them back. So that's how we do it here.
So in Charlotte, who's paying for those people? The state or the city of Charlotte or Mecklenburg?
I can't really answer that. You mean talking about the post-judgment crowd? Oh, I don't know. I think it's Mecklenburg County that does it, but I don't hold me to that. Mecklenburg County actually had allotted some money to provide to pay the sheriff's deputies to do that. That's, like I said, kind of fallen by the wayside.
Judge, nothing is worse than not having consequences for violation of probation. And one of the things that I hear is that it's so discombobulated that many probation officers just don't bother to go and petition for violation unless it's just egregious. Have you found that your court makes them go ahead and do it and get it earlier so that it can be dealt with, restructured, or whatever you're going to do? Does this help bring consequences to violations quicker?
It does. As far as, I think probation has a pretty good grasp on reporting individuals back for violations. And I think the supervisors in probation stay on their officers to make sure they report back violators. Sometimes we do it informally if it's just a really minor violation, and they bring the orders to me outside of court with the knowledge and at least the consent of the probationer. But the answer to your question is, I don't know that it speeds it up anymore for the supervised probation violations. They do a pretty good job of bringing those before me. As to the unsupervised probations, that's what we're working on now, to make sure that there are consequences to failure to follow through and do what you're supposed to do. And that's why it really pains me when they bring me an unsupervised probation violation where there's restitution made to the Employment Security Commission where somebody's been getting inappropriate compensation, filing for unemployment, whatever it is, and services, and actually stealing from the state of North Carolina while they're working jobs. They get placed on probation, sometimes unsupervised, sent to fine collection. You need to pay this. It could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 due to the state of North Carolina that they've taken advantage of. And if those aren't reported back to me within that period of time, it pains me greatly to say I can't bring these people back to court. So as a result of some of the things we've been doing recently, yes, it is putting pressure on post-judgment and those individuals to, within that period of a suspended sentence, file it appropriately in the clerk's office to stop the tolling of the time, bring it to me, let's get these folks back into court on it.
Gene?
Judge, it sounds like to me, I'm a former probation officer, that you have identified one of the major problems, and that is indigent people. We give them public defenders, and then they come before the court, and we give them these huge fines and these programs that we have that cost so much money. Scram, I don't know if you're familiar with that alcohol program where $12 a day.
It's expensive.
Well, but if I have a client that is rich, he gets the benefit of that. But if you have an indigent person, that's not available to him. $12 a day to wear that thing, and judges are using it more in Buncombe County. I just want to know, from a cost standpoint, in your courtroom, majority of the lawyers and public defenders are appointed when they come to these probation cases?
Yes, sir.
And so I raised the question, when you do this all over the state, it doesn't make sense to put somebody who can't even afford to have representation under orders where they have to pay $900 and $1,000 a month for programs, and then we send them back to jail when they don't comply because they don't have the money.
I totally agree with you. You know, that's a change that's going to have to happen to a certain degree with judges, and I'm talking about the indigent individuals, about imposing large fines and the like. To quote a phrase from earlier, I guess, in this particular decade, and it's an ugly phrase, but I use it anyways, the economy's stupid, and that's exactly what we've got to deal with. We've got to, I strike fines on probation violations when they come before me, and I don't strike them for restitution because I think that restitution has to be paid, and I think finally North Carolina's figured out where we were messing up big time on restitution, and it was, people were getting, the money was being diverted to court costs, court fees, those kinds of things, and the people weren't getting restitution. The actual victims of crimes weren't, and thank goodness we've gotten on top of that. But what I've done is I'll strike the fines at that point and then utilize some of these alternative methods of treatment. I think it's more convenient for me to have a probation officer test somebody on an instant drug or alcohol test than it is to put a scram monitor on them because they can't pay. They're collecting unemployment. They're going to feed their families first. That's what's going to happen.
Judge, my other point is the community service. You would think that if we were going to use community service, that we would require these indigent people to have to pay the state $200 to volunteer and to serve if they're poor. Maybe we could use community service to take care of some of these costs on the services you want to provide them and stop making them pay the state $200 to go do volunteer work at the Goodwill Industries. That would be one way a poor person could use an in-kind contribution to cover some of the costs where they didn't have the money to pay.
We've already figured that out, or I have anyway. You have to do, if you've got community service and you have to go through the community service department and pay $200 down, I get around that. You have to go complete 24 hours of community service at a nonprofit organization. Bring me a letterhead with a signature on it indicating you completed a community service during these hours. You have a review date. You come back to court. You provide me proof of that you've done that. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is on my probation violation is you're going to do your community service right now. Sheriff, he's in your custody for 24 hours. That's the way I do things. Get away from the $200 fee. I'm trying to avoid those fines and fees that make it virtually impossible for the indigent population to be able to follow through and complete that. There are plenty of agencies in the community you can go out and do work in and get credit for that's going to improve our community as a whole without having to collect $200 off of somebody who's getting $250 unemployment. You know, it's not going to happen when they've got kids at home and trying to provide for their family. So,
if you spend a night in jail one night, then you don't have to do it. So we encourage them to go to jail because you're poor, because you can't pay. So we give them an alternative to go to jail because you can't afford to pay $200. I'm just saying it's kind of getting backwards. The cost sheet now is so outrageous. Is that poor people are paying for the system and they can't even afford to pay, so we end up putting them back in jail, and that's why we're all sitting here today. But part of it is our fault because of the system that we've created, that poor people, we ride the backs of them when we know they don't have any money, and it starts when you appoint them a lawyer.
it does, but, you know, appointment of attorneys, that's the law. That's the law of the land.
I'm a lawyer. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that, but you understand my point.
I just came out of our administrative court this morning, and we had 854 cases on our docket this morning. That's a light day for us, by the way, here in Mecklenburg. What I do is, when somebody comes forward before me, they're charged with simple possession of marijuana, possession of alcohol by a minor, you know, those kinds of offenses, those types of things. I say, you have the right to represent yourself, hire an attorney, or request a public defender. If you qualify, you may have to pay the state of North Carolina back the reasonable cost of attorney's fees at $75 an hour in the event you're convicted of this offense. So what I did at that particular juncture, I said, look, have you ever been in trouble before? No, I haven't. You're charged with simple possession of marijuana. Can you take a class and pay $200 to complete this program? Now, I'm not talking necessarily about indigent people. I'm talking about just anybody that comes in front of me. Can you pay $200 to avoid a conviction on this matter? Well, yeah. Do I have to pay it now? No, you don't. You have to pay it before you take the class. Do I have to appoint an attorney to be able to make that phone call for you, to point you through the door to where you need to take this class? Or are you a big boy and can you do this by yourself? I can do it by myself. So I don't appoint counsel. That saves us $75 an hour on appointment of counsel. Later, I tell them, later on, if you can't comply with this, you can ask the next judge for appointment of counsel if you so choose. So I'm trying to avoid those systematic costs that we have involved here, trying to avoid these fines, trying to accomplish the goal of what I want to do, which is the rehabilitation, or at least the facing the consequences of your actions with it. So little by little, the things we have to all do in the system to try to improve this is where we need to focus. This economy is not going to get any better for us, for the system. And yes, we've created this system, and that's what I was telling you about earlier, about practicing in the private bar for 28 years. You know, you don't work, you don't get paid. If you don't do your job efficient, you're not going to make money. So I'm trying to bring that into the public sector to try to get the public to act a little bit like private enterprise and be responsible for the spending of funds and monies. My salary depends on it. I know that. And that's why I try not to frivolously spend that money.
Got time for one more question.
Judge Nixon, I wanted to ask about mental health court. What resources do you have available for that population, and how do you assure compliance?
Great question, since as of February the 23rd, earlier this week, area mental health was cut right out from underneath us. So we don't have area mental health to provide us community support in our mental health court. We don't take people with just slight mental issues. We take people with specific and persistent mental illnesses. You have to qualify under that particular category. A lot of street people that we do this with that have psychosis, depression, whatever it is that they have. We bring them in. We rely on, thank goodness, Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte to provide us with alternative housing. In order to be able to accomplish our goals in mental health court, the people are on probation. They're on misdemeanor probation, so we can sanction them by putting them in jail. I seldom put somebody in mental health court in jail. If I do, it's 24 hours, 48 hours to get their attention. At the same time, we try to they go through intense treatment for substance abuse. We get them located. We have Mecklenburg Open Doors, what we call it here, provide alternative housing for individuals, and it's basically public housing. We have them in a system whereby that they're supervised on a close basis. We've got an absolutely wonderful probation officer working with us that is heart and soul in helping us out in this project. That keeps an eye on the offenders to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. We try to get them, and I probably step close to violating the law on this because I try to get bus passes for people so our people can get to treatment on a regular basis. I'm not supposed to solicit money. I've asked plenty to help on this part. Just get us bus passes so they can get to their treatment. Get us bus passes so they can get out here to Social Security out on Albemarle Road and apply for their benefits. Get us bus passes so we can get somebody to the Division of Motor Vehicles or somewhere to get an ID card so they can apply for Social Security, disability, and those kinds of benefits. So we're lucky here in Mecklenburg. We've got a good community support staff that is helping us, provided by the city and provided by the county, to get these folks proper housing and get them out of the cold.
Been told we got time for one more.
Judge Nixon.
Yes, sir.
I'm Craig from the District Court Judge in Wake County, and I'm your sort of counterpart because I do adult drug treatment court and also do probation violations. Let me commend you on wanting to do probation violations like you do. In Wake County, we're kind of specialized where we do probation violations on Tuesday and Wednesday. We do domestic violence probation violations just on Thursday afternoon. And then our Superior Court judges, they do our H&I probation violations, so we got kind of specialized there. But I commend you for thinking outside the box. And one thing I want to say to Gene's point is that one thing about us judges, we can't wait weeks, but one thing about it, we need to go a step further with this, and I'm going to go ahead and get you to do this, and that you need to talk to members of the General Assembly as well, because those are the folks that actually assess these fees, and so, matter of fact, filing is tomorrow at 12, so you can get this file, you can file wherever you want, so you can make sure that happens in the General Assembly. Because that's where it really happens, because we just follow the laws that the General Assembly passed. But keep doing a good job you're doing.
Thank you.
We need more judges who are innovative, who are creative, and think outside the box, and trying to make sure we don't keep sending folks to prison. Keep the good work.
Thank you, folks, for allowing me the opportunity to speak.